It's literally a use it or lose it scenario with sprinting, isn't it? And I love that that's kind of factor. This actually leads us really nicely into kind of the final part of this episode, and it's talking about, well, what does good actually look like? Because I think we all have our own definitions of good, certainly. And I don't mind if I start here with, particularly with the tactical athlete space. And I think when we talk about, well, what qualities do we want to try and improve, and actually it's a lot simpler than maybe a lot of people focus on. I spend a lot of time working on the maximal strength spectrum of training with a lot of the guys. I want you to lift as heavy as you possibly can. And I want it to be I don't want it to be high stimulus strength output every freaking session, but I do want you to come in and hit a good moderate stimulus. I want you to walk away going, yeah, I worked hard there. I did. But noting that there is other things in the bucket and other elements that we have to understand when we talk about allostatic load and we talk about readiness scores when they come into their other training sessions. But maximal strength will always be a big marker for me with the guys I'm coaching. And I will always try and focus on motor unit control and motor unit recruitment when we're doing it. Yes, we can build. And I do think those two qualities go hand in hand. If I can improve somebody's ability to control that load once they've earned the right to hit that load, we can then start talking about eccentric focus. I want you to control that load. I really want you to think about that. There will be times where we're about force expression, but actually that's what I want you to do. I want you to be conditioned. So we're going to try and improve your ability to hit repeatable efforts, especially in the tactical athlete space. Like, we want you to endure long bouts of endurance work, carrying load, but we also want you to move fucking quickly. I want you to be able to sprint. I don't want you to be an absolute sock full of yogurt at the back, not being able to run, because if you can't run, you become the hindrance. So that's really all. And I feel like even in the military space, and I'm talking about this from my experience, we've overcomplicated what good training should look like. It should have some heavy strength. We should have some exposure to sprint work. We should have some long exposures to aerobic repeatability and aerobic output. And then you kind of blend all of those three together to create a pretty decent program. It doesn't have to be any more complex than that. The more further you get into elite sport, yes, look, with a tactical athlete, their life depends on them being able to move and them being able to be fit. But I feel like that's been lost in the past 15 years because we've not had many conflicts to deal with. We haven't had the Afghanistans and the Iraqs that we've had to deal with over the last decade. In decades before, you needed to be fit to go and do those things. You had to be able to move. You had to be able to carry load. You needed to be quite strong body to weight ratio. You needed to be able to move fucking quickly, because if you didn't, you got shot, mate, and it hurt. You were gone.
Because your life depends on it, basically.
Because your life depends on it. And I felt like the last decade, maybe it's depended less so for people in the tactical space. They're like, what does it fucking matter? So people have societally, maybe given a little bit of less of a shit about how their health and performance is. But I do feel like we're making a bit of a subtle shift. For me, that's what good looks like. Good looks like good strength, good sprint work, good aerobic repeatability stuff. And strength is on a spectrum. And that's maybe all it needs to be. And managing what your fatigue looks like in and amongst those sessions and understanding what that looks like. If you're coming in stressed to the fucking nines and life's been really shit, you've just had a fight with your wife, your kids have been ill, your dog's been put down, and life is really tough, you're probably not going to be able to give me your maximal strength. But guess what? You can come in and do the best that you can do, and we'll try and help you through that. Do you know what I mean? And that's kind of what...
Maximal strength can be anything between 70% and 95%, but it's still... That's still high effort work, right? And there's only one physical capacity that transfers to everything else, and that's maximal strength. So it transfers to sprint speed, it transfers to better deceleration, better tissue tolerance, explosiveness, transfers to everything. But you don't need to be going 100 max. When people hear max strength, they're thinking you need to go max effort. That's not the same thing. Maximal strength can be anything between like that 70% to 95%. And like, generally, we're never really going 100% unless there's a need to.
Unless there's a need to, yeah, exactly. But based on that, what would you change anything, Marco? Would there be anything that you would add to what good looks like in your bucket?
No, I mean, I think the only thing that is missing, like from an industry perspective, about what makes good or what good looks like is you know, it's from the coaching perspective is just, and I stole this quote from Charlie Weingroff and I still use it all the time because I think it's brilliant. It's just making sure that what you're exposing to people to is like, can their joints get in the right positions to absorb and adapt to stress? And if they can't, then you need to find an alternative, right? And that doesn't mean that training that fitness quality can't happen for that person, right? Like me, for example, like, and I know Acos is in a similar boat with a history of knee stuff. Like I don't tolerate bilateral squatting well. I can, but I don't tolerate it well, and I don't tolerate it well enough to the point where I'm willing to do it very heavy because my knees will not feel good the next day, particularly my right one. So for me, I kind of look at that and I'm like, nah, this is one of these things where my joints can't really get in the positions to absorb and adapt to stress the way I want them to. That doesn't mean I don't find a different way to train a knee dominant pattern with quality. Right. And I think that's what's one of the things that's missing from this whole conversation of good is that people see the list of things that they feel like need to be done. They don't qualify themselves or orient themselves as to whether or not they should be doing those things, or the right professional hasn't told them, hey, I need to protect you from this for a little while because you're not fit to squat. We can train knee dominant patterns in other ways, but right now I got to protect you from the squat. And I think that's the only thing that's missing from good